Hey guys, Jeff Beggins. Listen, I don't know if you saw this yet today, but Clearwater Beach up in Sand Key, one of those older condo buildings, they evacuated today from a potential structural collapse.
There is cracks found in a pillar underneath the building there as they pull out wide. Evacuations are happening floor by floor.
And if you didn't see it, here's a copy of the video that we shot about, 6 months ago, a little bit post Hurricane Helene, looking at the structural integrity at some of these buildings. Now, I'm not doing this from an alarmist perspective. I'm just doing this as a let's pay attention perspective because nobody wants to see anybody get hurt in this neighborhood. But take a look and see what just happened in Clearwater Beach. And I hope people start looking a little bit closer at some of these older structures. So let me know what you think.
All right, let's go through another example over here. Walking the beach with my dad. Say hi, Dad.
Hi, son.
All right.
How are you?
Good. All right, so what we're doing, so if you look behind us, Taylor, see that big seawall? That was designed, obviously, to break water. This seawall designed to kind of stop the water, which is great until you have 6-8 feet of water on top of the seawall. And then you have waves that start crashing on top here, right? So the questions, all I'm doing is posting questions and issues. So the waves are coming in. You had, this was solid core concrete up to the seawall here. That all broke away. And then if you look in the back there, you could see the slab that's poured. The waves are crashing and going underneath the slab. That's not a huge problem because that's not the support, right? The support is on these pilings. So if you look at these pilings, and let's just look at a few of them. There's that one right there. That's not spray paint. That little number right there looks like a 4. That's actually the rebar, the reinforcement steel that gets stuffed into the columns, right? Then the concrete gets poured around that rebar. So then there's
the rebar was half the size. That's all rust. It's doubled the size of everything.
That's rust. Yeah, right. So there's rust there, and then when water gets into that rebar, it starts to expand and to pop, and it pops off the concrete. If you go to now, let's just look at this one. Go to the base there, and then just scroll up for a second. And then anybody want to do a guess as far as the pounds of concrete and steel and windows?
Not even counting the weight of the people.
The people, the cabinets, the appliances, the dishwashers, and all of that's coming down structurally calculated for these columns to support it. So this one, let's step over to this one right here. There's the one next door to it, right? Same thing. Go to the one on the far end. That one's even worse, right? On that far end. And when we go in a few layers, it's just as bad, right? So my question is, look how thin these little support pilings are as well. And if you walk over this way, I want to show you something that is interesting to look at. And I just get concerned, right? Because I know that there hasn't been an inspector that did anything before people are up there. There's people on their balconies right now. It scares the crap out of me, potentially, of what could happen here. Because then look 2 in here. So pop over this construction fence. This one here is all messed up, as we showed on the end. And then go 2 in, right? Look at the exposed concrete beams coming in on that one. And my question is, what's going to happen? And my fear of what's going to happen is what some of your fears might be what's going to happen. I'm not even going to say it, but we all know. And I get really concerned about the structural integrity of these type of buildings. You can see the power that happened here. This is just one of them, right? There's a lot of ones. These are some of the ones that are in worse shape than the others. Now imagine when you had this water coming through and you had the cars in the garages, they're floating and bouncing into things too.
Did you mention the age of this building?
Mention the age of the building. It's built in 1972, right? So it's a 50 bunch of year old building. I'm doing math.
Building sitting in salt water.
Right, and the water table, if we were to dig a little hole, I do with my kids, your house all the time, we're gonna hit the water table in about 5 minutes, right? So there's salt water right down there. So underneath these foundation slabs are more pilings that went into the ground. They've been sitting in salt water literally the entire time for 50 plus years going up. So you have whatever that is made out of sitting in concrete, poured on concrete and steel that's now exposed, that's getting weaker, and that's not getting any less heavy, right? So these are the questions up and down. This is not just here, right? This is from Marco Island the whole Gulf Coast.
1,500,000 condos are affected in Florida that are more than 30 years old. They have to be inspected.
1,500,000 condos in Florida over
Mostly
30
owned
years
by
old. Now,
people like me.
owned by seasoned people. We'll use that on that one. So, but they had to be inspected anyway, right? This is before hurricane. They're all getting their inspections because of the Surfside collapse that happened in Miami a couple years ago. They forced the rules to come do inspection reports to make sure they were safe. Now enter 2 hurricanes in a row, and these waves crashing on here and bringing more into question the structural integrity of these buildings. What happens? This is just a case study, right? So if something were to happen to this building and deem it unsafe, you can never rebuild this here. The codes won't allow it. The density doesn't allow it. There's no way to rebuild it. So then what happens to property value on old condos when they're down? Remember the example, some of you remember watching this for a while, the Sandalwood property up in North Reddington Beach, right? There were 42 owners, I believe, in that building. The steel was exposed. The city came in, condemned the building, didn't condemn it, they deemed it uninhabitable. Got to use my words wisely on this one. And everybody was kicked out of the building. And then it was sitting there for a couple of years. And then a friend of mine, Frank D'Agostino, a lot of you may know him, we saw the opportunity and he said, let's go buy that and build a new hotel. So I had to go to 42 of the individual owners and get them to sell their units because the building was still standing. So we were, but the value of it wasn't the condo anymore, it's the actual dirt, right? So it's the dirt and the density on the land divided by that number of owners. So we had to get every one of these to accept a price that made sense. So in the event something were to happen to this, like what happened at Surfside, the only value in that property is the dirt and the density in X dollars per unit from a rebuild perspective. Then you divide that by the number of owners in this building and that's what it's worth. Nowhere near what these condos are selling for. And there's nowhere near they have the reserves for their insurance policies to rebuild, right? The reserves are for window replacements, balcony replacements, do the things in the windows and the roofs and all this stuff that's typically needed for the reserves. Not one condo that I'm aware of anywhere has enough money in the funding or the insurance policy to fund a rebuild, right? So this is just something to think about when you start looking at all these, and we'll bring you a couple more examples, but this really makes me nervous from a lot of different perspectives, from a real estate hat perspective, from a human perspective, from a safety perspective, from a what the hell's going to happen perspective on here. So I hope nothing happens, and I hope they can reinforce it.
If one more Surfside happens, what will happen to the 1,500,000 other condos?
If one more Surfside happens, or a hurricane-related Surfside happens, everything's changed. Everything will change. So older condo values are something to really have a serious consideration to think about, just for the reason like that. This isn't speculation. This is just me asking questions about what might this do and what concerns should this have, and from a public safety perspective, what happens over here, right? So that's that. I'm just bringing you some examples post-storm. We're focusing a lot of the homes and the rebuilds of the homes, but what do we do about the condos and making sure everybody in these buildings is safe and everybody around these buildings are safe and everybody in this way for the building? I mean, it's a couple 100 feet that way, a couple 100 feet that way, 100 feet that way, 100 feet that way. That's in a scary zone.
Maybe this is unique. Let's look at the one.
Maybe it's a one-off.
Look at the other one.
It's not a one-off. We just showed you the 2-off. So now this is a 2-off. So we'll go to another one in a second. So interesting. Again, this is just me bringing awareness to something that we need to have awareness on to figure out what we're going to do. Maybe it's a 1-off. Maybe it was a 2-off. Here's a 3-off. Right. This is just another one. This is an interesting scenario. Yeah, 3, 4, and 5-off. I want to zoom in on this piling just for a second. I just want to know if anybody else notices anything interesting on that one. Material, perhaps. So that's wood. Look at the bottom of the wood. Doesn't look like it's the strongest piece of wood in the world with a little wood rot on it. Now pan from the base there, Taylor, and look what it's holding. And then look what it's holding, and look what it's holding, look what it's holding. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stories of weight of concrete and appliances and windows and walls on that one beam, right? And then you look at the foundation right under here, the waves are crashing, blew out the windows, eroded the sand underneath the whole foundation over here. And then you come over to this side, And you see the size of the foundation footage. Now you've been watching our projects that we're building, and the foundation pieces are enormous, right? Now this is what was required back in the day when these were built, so nothing wrong with it. But look at the difference in the size, and look at the weight that's all of this weight's coming down on these pilings over here, and it's just something that's just something to think about, right? And it's an uneasy feeling on that situation on this one. So I'm not trying to alarm, I'm trying to bring awareness, because I know a lot of people that live in here. I care about them, and I really worry about this. And just, I don't know what the inspections are gonna look like. Everyone's got their hands full on a million other urgent priorities. This should go up on the urgent priority list, is what I'm saying on that one, just because from a people perspective on that one. So that's that. So what's the point of this? Just to kind of bring awareness to things that I think need awareness to look at, because we don't want to see anybody get hurt, and we don't want to see anybody get destroyed financially, physically, harmed in any way, right? So this is just us kind of showing what's happening around. So that's that. Leave some comments. I want to know what you guys think about this one, and what other questions you might want to see answered on one of the next ones. And see you guys soon as the recovery